What women find attractive in men makes zero sense to most men. Because on one hand, you hear things like women place less importance on physical appearance than men do. But then when you look at how women behave in real life, it doesn't seem to be the case. Right? You see women looking at a handsome man and they seem a lot more excited looking at him and interacting with him than a quote-unquote ugly guy or a below-average looking guy or even an average-looking guy. Right? So it doesn't seem to make much sense because for most men, they have a niggling thought in their mind. They have a feeling that something isn't the same about a woman's attraction to a man compared to a man's attraction to a woman, but they can't quite put their finger on it. Right? It just doesn't seem to make sense. Right? So I've figured out an easy way to explain it that will completely change the way that you look at female attraction, and it will make it simple for you from now on. But before I share that with you, I'm going to give you some quotes from women that help put it into perspective. Right? So there was once a famous actress called Zsa Zsa Gabor. One of the things that she said, which has become quite a popular saying, is that men fall in love with their eyes, they like what they see, and women fall in love with their ears, they like what they hear. Here's another quote from a famous actress, Marilyn Monroe. So she said, "If you can make a girl laugh, you can make her do anything." So I'll get back to Zsa Zsa Gabor's quote in a minute, but first, with Marilyn Monroe's quote, "If you can make a girl laugh, you can make her do anything," why didn't she say, "If you're very handsome, you can make a girl do anything"? Why didn't she say something like that? Why did that come out of her mouth? Right? Why is it something that many men seem to feel like is true, but they can't quite put their finger on as well? In terms of, you may have heard that women like a guy who can make them laugh. Right? Why do they like that? What the heck is going on? Well, it's going to make sense when I explain this to you, and it's an easy way to understand male-female attraction. For a woman, attraction is mostly about what she senses, not what she sees. For a man, attraction is mostly about what he sees, not what he senses. That's what Zsa Zsa Gabor was trying to say when she said ears. Right? She means that women need to interact with a guy and get a sense for who he is, and then they start to fall in love, whereas most men can immediately begin to fall for a woman based on how she looks. And that's one of the reasons why women wear makeup and men don't. Right? Women are trying to make themselves look as good as possible because they know that for men, attraction is mostly about what they see. Right? So the woman draws attention to her lips by painting them a different color. So the man is looking at her lips. He's focusing on her lips. A woman's lips can literally make a man feel attracted to her. He can be looking at her lips and thinking about kissing her and doing other things with her. And when it comes to the foundation and so on that she puts on her face, she's trying to make her face look as perfect as possible. So a man will look and feel shocked at how beautiful her face is, how clear her skin is. But you don't see men doing that. Because if women felt attraction in the same way, then men would also be wearing makeup to make their face look as beautiful as possible. But still, even with that type of evidence pointing out a clear difference between male and female attraction, it still doesn't do it for most men. They still feel like, but, I've seen women say that a guy is handsome. I've seen women react to handsome men, and they're telling the truth. Women do react to handsome men in a different way than average-looking men. But what most men don't understand is that women can feel more attracted to things that can't be seen with the naked eye. They can only be sensed. Right? You can only sense a man's confidence. You can only sense his social intelligence. You can only sense his assertiveness and experience it. You can't see it. Sure, you may be able to see his confident actions and confident body language, but that is still being sensed, right? The woman is sensing that he is confident based on the way that he is reacting to things. He is confident based on the way that he is saying things, the way that he is expressing himself, the things that he's not saying, right? She's sensing that he is more confident than another guy, right? She's not seeing something on his face that says confidence 100%. Right? Or confidence 75%, right? She's not seeing that. Instead, it's something that she senses as she interacts with him. And that's why for most men, they can look at a woman and instantly say yes, because it's more about what the man sees than what he senses, right? What a man senses can be important to a man if he has standards and he's not just looking to have sex, for example, but what's most important to a man's attraction is what he sees. And for women, it's mostly about what she senses. But it confuses men because it can also be about what she sees, right? Women can look at a handsome man and say, he is attractive, and they can feel attracted to him. And there are certain women out there who place more importance on a man's physical appearance than anything else, right? They're all about a man's looks. And if a man has overheard a woman saying something like that, or he's observed that type of behavior, he can make the mistake of thinking that all women are like that. All women are just fixated on a man's looks, and that's it. There's no way to make a woman genuinely want you in a sexual and romantic way unless you're good looking, right? That's what he's thinking. You have to be a good looking guy. And if you're then confident and assertive and socially intelligent and funny and so on, then she's going to like you. But if you're just confident, assertive, socially intelligent, and you can make a woman laugh, and you're average looking, then women just aren't going to be interested in you. Heck, if you're below average looking, man, you've got no chance. Now at this point, I can't just say something like that. I know, because I've been helping men for over 20 years with this. I have to show evidence and say, look at these men who have themselves a nice looking girlfriend or a pretty girlfriend. Are they the most handsome men in the world? Do they have big muscles? Right? Are they 6 foot tall and taller than the woman? Are they in perfect shape? Do they look like a male model? Or do they look like an average looking guy? Or for some guys, maybe less than average looking based on some of their physical features. Now, what a lot of guys don't realize is that many of the guys who seek help with women actually see themselves as very good looking or good looking, and they're handsome men in many cases. And for guys who aren't handsome, right, I'm average looking, but for guys who aren't handsome, who are average looking and below, and who don't understand how to make women feel attracted, they don't understand female attraction, that doesn't seem to make sense. Right? How could a handsome guy be struggling with women? It doesn't seem to make any sense. But the way that it works is that if a man is handsome, but he's insecure and doubts himself around women that he finds attractive, then their attraction will usually switch off. Right? They may look at him initially and see him as a handsome guy and feel some attraction for him because of that. But if they then sense that he doubts his value around them, he doesn't feel like he's good enough, he's insecure, he's self-doubting, their attraction switches off because they're not looking for a man who is weaker than them emotionally. So what happens for handsome men like that is that they end up getting hit on by less attractive women who are happy to put up with the fact that the guy is self-doubting and insecure, and he ends up getting into relationships with women who he isn't even attracted to. And it just doesn't work out, right? Or he's miserable and she's miserable. But eventually it will end in a breakup or cheating or something like that, right? It's just not going to work because he honestly doesn't feel attracted to her. He doesn't feel that genuine attraction. But when he's around women that he finds attractive, he doubts himself. He doubts his value. Or for some handsome men, they just don't know how to make women feel attracted in the non-physical ways, right? In the ways that they're wanting to sense about him, right? So they're interacting with him and he might be quite confident and handsome, but he still struggles with women. How could that be possible? Well, what happens is that he'll be interacting with the woman and she'll pick up on his lack of social or emotional intelligence. So, for example, with social intelligence, he may not really understand what attracts women, and she will say some things and he will then reply and react to what she's saying, and she'll sense that, he doesn't get it. Right? He, for example, may be handsome, confident, but very nice, and thinks that he needs to treat a woman like a princess and jump through all of her hoops to hopefully get a chance with her. And then she realizes that, he's a bit naive. He doesn't really understand how female attraction works and how women want to feel like they need to impress a man and they need to jump through some of his hoops to get with him, right? They want to feel like they need to impress him and win him over more rather than him feeling like she has all the power and he's going to have to just jump through all of her hoops and pass all of her tests that she's putting him through and behave as well as he can around her and say all the quote-unquote right things, and then she'll let him have a chance with her. He's one of those guys who have the sort of mindset that results in things coming out of his mouth such as, she let me kiss her, but she didn't let me touch her down there. Or she lets me hold her hand, but she doesn't let me kiss her. Right? He's one of those let guys who are thinking that the woman is letting him. rather than being a guy who actually makes the woman feel attracted to the point where she wants to be touched by him. And she gets to be touched by him. She gets to hold his hand. She gets to be kissed by him. And that is a much better feeling for the woman than getting a sense about a guy where he is feeling like she's letting him do that, but she won't let him do other things. And he's going to try to behave as well as he can to be given access to the next level with her, where she'll not only let him hold her hand, but she'll let him kiss her on the cheek. But he's got to the cheek kiss now. Lucky boy. And if she gets that sense about a guy, then her attraction will start to switch off, because if she's an attractive woman, she doesn't want to get with a guy who is wet behind the ears, he's socially naive, and he just doesn't understand how a woman's attraction really works. But if that same handsome man met a woman who was less physically attractive than him, in some cases, she'll put up with that. And if she is unattractive, then she'll almost always definitely put up with it, and she'll be happy about it because she'll think that he really doesn't know his own value, and hopefully she's going to be able to keep him in a relationship as a result of that. Right? She's going to be able to make him feel like he needs her and she's the only woman that he can get. And some handsome men fall for that trick, and they end up settling down and getting with a woman who isn't attractive to them. They don't find her attractive, but she's really good at controlling the man, right? And making him feel insecure and doubt himself and feel like he needs her. And then when it comes to emotional intelligence, it's about things such as if a woman challenges the guy in some way, she says something to test his confidence or test his resolve or test if he can handle the situation, and he can't come up with a clever comeback, and instead he feels stunned, or he feels annoyed, or he starts becoming emotionally sensitive, or he's just confused, or he simply doesn't know how to handle it, then she knows that he lacks that type of emotional intelligence. And why is that important to women? Essentially, one way to explain it is that when it comes to a man's attraction to a woman, all a man really needs at a fundamental level is that the woman is healthy, she's youthful enough to produce children, and she is attractive enough to then plant his seed inside of her. Right? He essentially needs that at the fundamental level, even if he never wants to have kids. Right? That is what is really going on underneath the surface with his attraction. But for a woman, what she really needs is a man who's going to be able to handle himself in the world and handle being with her in a relationship. And that's one of the reasons why women will get with all different types of men, right? Rather than just a good-looking guy who looks youthful and he seems like he can produce children. Because for men, they can impregnate a woman when they're in their 70s, for example. And there are cases of men becoming fathers in their 80s and 90s. But women have never been able to do that. Women will most likely be able to do it in the future, but throughout human history, women have had a much smaller window of fertility compared to men. And that's why men are naturally wired to find more youthful-looking, fertile-looking women attractive, rather than older women who are no longer fertile. So attraction doesn't have to be about a man looking youthful. Instead, it can be about other things. And of course, if a man is a lot older and the woman is a lot younger, it can also be about that the man is more successful in life and he is more financially successful. And if she gets pregnant by him, he is going to be able to support her in a better way than a guy who, for example, may be 23 like her or 25 like her and hasn't yet become successful in life, right? So it can be about that as well. But it's important to understand that at a fundamental level, what your system of attraction is driving you to find in a woman is different than what her system of attraction is driving her to find in a man. And it doesn't necessarily seem like that on the surface all the time. Yet, one of the reasons why you and other men watch videos like this is that you have a feeling. You have some sort of sense that tells you that there is a difference between women's attraction to men and men's attraction to women. You know it deep down, but you may not have been able to put your finger on it and figure it out. And the best way, the most simple way to explain it is that for a woman, attraction is mostly what she senses about a guy rather than what she sees. So in terms of her sensing, it's about whether he is insecure or confident, whether he is secure in his masculinity or he's insecure about it. He doesn't know if it's okay to be manly around her. He doesn't know if it's okay to be different from her. and he may want to try to be more like her because he's insecure about his masculinity. He doesn't know if it's a good thing, and he doesn't know if she's going to like it or not. And it can also be about whether he places her above him in terms of value, or if he sees himself as good enough, right? She's sensing things about him. And for most women, that is much more important, right? Attraction is mostly about what she senses. And notice that I said mostly about, right? It doesn't mean that looks cannot play a part at all. Instead, what is mostly important to women is what they sense about a man. And that's why for women, rather than instantly looking at a man and saying, yep, I'd have sex with him in almost all cases, right? Unless he's very handsome and she is just that sort of woman. In almost all cases, the woman wants to interact with the man first. She wants to get a sense about him. What sort of guy is he? Right? She needs to figure that out because that is what is most important to her. And it doesn't take long if you're good at attracting women. For example, you can make a woman feel attracted to you within a few seconds based on your confidence, for example, and her attraction can then build based on her sensing more attractive things about you. Yet for most men, it's as simple as looking at the woman and saying yes. And what's more is that you can even look at a body part of a woman, a part of a woman. With this photo here, you can't even see the entire woman. But most men watching this video would say yes to having sex with her just based on seeing that. Because it's not about what the man has to sense about her. Right? He doesn't have to sense, is she confident enough? Right? Can she handle herself in the world? Because I need a woman who's more confident than me. I want to feel like she can handle other people for us when we're in a social situation, so I can stand behind her, I can cuddle into her arm, right? Men aren't looking to sense that about a woman. And this is why, for example, a guy can be interacting with a woman and things seem to be going well, right? He's talking to her, she seems to like him, and suddenly she loses interest. And he's thinking, what the heck's going on? It's about what she sensed. But for most men, if they find a woman attractive physically and they sense certain things about her, they still want to have sex with her. Right? And for many men, they're still interested in potentially trying a relationship with her. Right? It's mostly about what the man sees. Now, of course, if a man has standards and he gets a certain sense about a woman that she might be untrustworthy or she might be this or that, then he's like, well, I'm not interested. But for many men, they will still want to go ahead with having sex with her anyway, but most women don't want to do that. In fact, it's really not most women, it's pretty much all women, right? Once they get a sense about a guy that he has non-physical traits that they don't find attractive, their attraction starts to switch off. They start to put their guard up. They start to lose interest. And that's why for the last 20 years, as I've been helping men with this, I've had all sorts of men come to me for help because despite their good looks or their average looks, they aren't getting the results that they want, right? And for some guys, they're very handsome. Some guys have even contacted me and they work as a model and they can't get to kissing and sex with women. Women shut down around them and they can't figure it out. It's because of these non-physical traits that are more important to women because for a woman, it's mostly about what she senses. But what then confuses men, which I hope doesn't confuse you after watching this video, is that they see some women reacting with a lot of attraction to handsome men. And then they make the mistake of thinking that all women are like that. It's all about a man being handsome. And because women react to a handsome man like that and they don't react to them like that, then they just don't have a chance with women. Additionally, for some guys, they've grown up in the era of dating apps and they've heard the lies in the media saying that dating apps are the number one way that people meet these days, but they don't reveal the actual truth, which is that the majority of users on dating apps are men. So if a guy has spent many years trying to get results on dating apps and doesn't get what he wants, he will often think that women as a collective are rejecting him because the media is telling him that it's the number one way that couples meet these days, even though it's only a small percentage of women who are actually using the apps, right? He won't get told that. And I don't know if you saw the story, but there was a guy who swiped 2 million times on Tinder over 5 years to get one date. Now, he is a bit of a chubby looking guy, right? He doesn't have the male model looks, but he doesn't look that bad, right? But the problem is that because women have so much choice on dating apps because the users are mostly men, They've got all sorts of men, and in many cases handsome men who don't actually approach women. They can choose from that, right? So they then go for those type of options. But it doesn't mean that a guy who's average looking can't get results, because, for example, if you think about if you had 100 women in front of you and there were unattractive women, average, below average, pretty, beautiful, whatever you want to label them as, right? Different levels of attractiveness, and you were told that you could pick any woman and all the women were interested in you, who would you pick? For some guys, they'll say the most beautiful woman. For other guys, they'll say, oh, just pretty. For other guys, they'll say, oh, average looking, because I don't think a beautiful woman would want to be with me, or I don't think I could handle her. And that's one of the reasons why average looking guys sometimes get results on dating apps, because some women are afraid to get involved with a handsome man because they don't think that they can maintain the handsome man's interest in a relationship. So they prefer an average looking man. And it's not an unfounded fear, because according to the American Psychological Association, relationships where the woman is less physically attractive than the man are less satisfying and more likely to end in a breakup or divorce. Essentially, the reason why is that the man is usually less motivated to do what it takes to keep the relationship together and to make the woman feel appreciated and wanted, because he doesn't really find her physically attractive. And the reality is that a woman's physical attractiveness is important to a man. For example, there was another study that found that husbands were more satisfied at the beginning of the marriage and remained more satisfied over the next 4 years if they had a physically attractive wife. Yet wives were no more or less satisfied initially or over the next 4 years if they had a physically attractive husband. And why it's 4 years is that they were running a 4-year study and they just followed up. And essentially they found that the wives were no more or less happy if the man was handsome, so it didn't really give them any benefit. But for the man, if he had a pretty wife, then he was more satisfied. Now, bringing this back to the topic of dating apps, women have never been the majority users, and they never will be, because for women, they have a sense about them that if a man is using a dating app, then he can't get women in real life. So women in real life are sensing that he's not attractive to the point where he then has to get on a dating app. Now, it's not true for all men who use dating apps, right? I have some handsome friends who use dating apps, and they can attract women in real life if they actually talk to them. But most of the handsome friends that I have, they don't actually walk over and talk to women that they find attractive. They only talk to women who come and talk to them, or they only talk to women if one of their friends starts the conversation, because for most handsome men, they have a self-image that they want to protect, right? Everyone thinks that he's a stud, and for him, he wants to continue thinking that he's a stud, right? He looks at himself in the mirror and he thinks, yeah, I'm handsome, I'm the man. But when he's out and about during the day and he sees an attractive woman, she may look at him, but there's a 1 in a million chance that he would actually walk over and talk to her. In almost all cases, a handsome man will never do that. Instead, he'll be hoping that she comes over and talks to him, because he's been used to getting that type of treatment from less attractive women his entire life, where less attractive women essentially shoot their shot with the handsome man, so they can show off to their friends that they got a handsome man, and they can show their family that they got a handsome boyfriend, and they can feel good about themselves because they're not that physically attractive and they got themselves a handsome man. So the handsome man is used to getting hit on by less attractive women, but in almost all cases, if a woman is beautiful, she's not going to go over and hit on a handsome man, right? So just because a guy has looks and he does get certain reactions from women, it doesn't mean that every other man who doesn't look as good as him can't make women feel attracted, because the reality is that women can fall in love with a man for non-physical reasons that aren't all about his looks. She just really likes how he makes her feel and who she's able to be when she's with him, right? He brings out a side of her that she really likes. And for many women, that is more important to them than a man merely looking good. Yet that said, she will still be able to look at a handsome man and find him attractive. But that doesn't mean that she's then going to leave the average looking man for the handsome man, right? If that was the case, then everyone would know that that is the case. It would always happen. Everyone would know that if you're an average guy and you've got a pretty girl, she's going to leave you for a handsome man. But that is not the collective understanding, because although that can happen, it's not what happens in the majority of cases, right? It can happen if a pretty woman gets with an average looking guy and he isn't able to make her feel attracted because he's insecure or he becomes jealous and clingy in the relationship, and then a handsome guy hits on her and she leaves him for him instead. Now, that can definitely happen. But if an average looking guy, for example, has himself a pretty girlfriend or a wife and he knows how to make her feel attracted in the non-physical ways that attract women, then she feels a genuine attraction for him, a genuine love and respect. But she'll still be able to look at a handsome man and find him handsome. But it doesn't mean that he's then going to lose his woman, right? Men all over the world and throughout human history have been in a situation where they've had a pretty woman and there have been other men around in the village, in the tribe, in the town, in the city, you name it, that have been more physically attractive than themselves, but the woman has remained with the average looking man, for example. Right, so it's not a case that a guy who isn't handsome can't get the sort of results that he wants with women. You can. And not only am I a personal example of that, right? A guy who has always had a high hairline ever since I was a kid. It's the same way. A guy who has a bent nose from a childhood accident. Right, I don't have the best appearance. I have an average appearance. I wouldn't say I'm ugly, but some people might want to disagree with that. But I wouldn't say that I'm ugly. I would say that I'm about average looking. And I'm 5'9" in terms of height. I was able to enjoy my choice of women because I figured out that you can actually attract women to you and maintain a woman's attraction for things that cannot be seen with the naked eye that are more important to most women than looks. And note that I'm saying most women, because some women still place looks as their number one thing. But most women place more importance on things that cannot be seen with the naked eye and therefore need to be sensed rather than seen. And not only am I evidence of it working, but the members of my community who are using my techniques to attract women. Here's a guy who's 5'8" in terms of height, for example. And the one that you're seeing on the screen now, the guy is 5'3". I have members in my community from all over the world with all different types of physical appearance, and they're able to get results. They're able to make women feel genuine attraction for them and truly want to be with them, despite the fact that some of them aren't good looking guys, right? Some are average, some are below average looking, some are good looking, some are handsome. But what they're now doing that is getting them the results is that they're attracting women in ways that cannot be seen with the naked eye, right? Things that women are sensing about them, where the woman starts interacting with the guy and she gets a sense about him. She thinks, there's something about this guy. I like him. She's looking at him and she's feeling attracted to him. And as you may have heard me explain in a previous video, I'll put up the study now. What actually happens when a woman feels attracted to you for non-physical traits is that she actually starts looking at your physical appearance in a more positive light, and she sees you as more physically attractive. That's how a woman's attraction really works. And that's why, even if a guy doesn't look as good as a woman, she can end up looking at him as sexy and say that he's handsome. And other guys will be looking like, why is she saying he's handsome? He's got a big nose, or he may have big ears, or he might be a bit chubby. He's losing his hair. How could she say that he's handsome? What they don't understand is that although women can feel attracted to what they see, for most women, what's more important to them is what they sense about a guy. And that is what makes them feel the most amount of attraction, right? His non-physical traits. How do they make her feel? Additionally, if they don't initially like what they see, for most women, not all, they can change the way that they see the guy. There's something different going on with the woman's eyes than what happens with our eyes when we look at a woman. Right? If we are interacting with a woman and we don't find her physically attractive, and then she starts being very confident and she's also being assertive, right? We're not going to say, oh, wow, now she's sexy, now she's hot. She's still going to look the same way because our attraction works differently than a woman's attraction. It works differently, and it's so important that you understand that. If you don't understand that and you don't realize what's going on, what women find attractive in men will make zero sense for you for your entire life. For example, with what Marilyn Monroe said, if you can make a girl laugh, you can make her do anything. Why is that the case? Do you understand now? Right? Do you understand why a woman would place so much importance on a man making her laugh? Right? What could be the reason? Why didn't she say, if you're really good looking or you're handsome enough, you can make a girl do anything? Why did she say that if you can make a girl laugh, you can make her do anything? And why do people know collectively just a common understanding that women like guys who can make them laugh. Women find guys who can make them laugh attractive. Why is that? Additionally, why isn't it the case that an unattractive woman can be funny and crack jokes and then all the men want her? They suddenly start finding her sexy and attractive. Why do men still see her as being an unattractive woman? Why does that happen? Essentially, when a guy can make a woman laugh, and it's just one of the non-physical traits, it's not the only non-physical trait that you can display to make a woman feel attracted, and you don't even have to make a woman laugh to make her feel attracted by displaying non-physical traits, right? You can use confidence and assertiveness, charm, flirting, and so on. You don't have to make a woman laugh, but it's a non-physical trait that does attract women. When a guy can use humor in a way that makes a woman laugh, not in a way where she's like, oh, ha, ha, or she doesn't laugh. Instead, she laughs and she feels excited, attracted, and best of all, the best type of humor to use is what I call playfully challenging humor. It makes her feel playfully challenged. If you can make a woman feel that way, she senses all sorts of things about you that are potentially true, right? Such as if you've got the courage and confidence to playfully challenge her with some humor, right? Not just crack a joke for the sake of it, but playfully challenge her, then it suggests that you're not needy. You're not insecure. You're not placing her above you in terms of value. Right? You see yourself as being good enough to the point where you can actually playfully challenge her with something that you're saying, and that makes her laugh. And she also then sees that you have the emotional intelligence to come up with something like that. Right? So it's a signal to her that you're a much more capable, competent man than a man who cannot say something like that to her, cannot playfully challenge her, cannot come up with something like that in the moment. You seem to have that type of intelligence, which is going to make her enjoy being around you more. Not that you always need to be cracking jokes and playfully challenging her, but you have that ability. And if you can imagine a woman interacting with two guys who are twins, right? They look exactly the same and they're both confident, but one guy playfully challenges her at times with some humor. And she often finds herself laughing and feeling playfully challenged around him, and it wakes her up. It excites her. It feels like there's a spark between him and her. And he doesn't have to be doing that all the time, as I said. But the other guy, his twin, is just more neutral. He's confident. He looks exactly the same as his twin, but he doesn't have the ability to do that when he's interacting with her. So the interactions feel a little bit more flat and neutral. And why it's important to a woman that interactions aren't always going to be flat and neutral is that her attraction is trying to make her find a guy who has more of an ability to be able to keep a relationship together with her rather than just wanting to get what he wants, right? Which is, for many men, they just want to get to the point where they at least have sex with the woman, right? Get her boobs out and get to have sex with her sort of thing. She let me have sex with her, right? He's wanting to get to have sex with her. But for a woman, she's more interested in seeing that you have the ability to create sparks of attraction inside of her, and therefore, it's much more likely that you're going to be able to keep the spark alive in a relationship. That's why, for example, with flirting, which creates sexual tension and desire between you and a woman, it's a trait that women place a lot of importance on, but men don't need from a woman, right? They don't need that from her, but flirting suggests that the man is going to be able to keep the spark alive in a relationship. So that's one of the reasons why what women find attractive in men makes zero sense to most men, because a man will be interacting with a woman and his attraction to her is quite basic and easy. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's immediate, and he doesn't really need to sense anything else. But he will be interacting with the woman and he will have done his best to look as good as he can, right? And he will be trying to get along with her during the conversation, but she'll be sensing non-physical traits that are unattractive to her, such as he's insecure, he's self-doubting, he lacks social intelligence or emotional intelligence, and she will literally begin to lose attraction for him, right? Initially, she may have felt a spark. Maybe he was confident at the start of the interaction, but he just continued to talk to her in a neutral way. He doesn't have the ability to flirt with her and create sexual tension. So it just feels neutral. It feels like a forgettable type of interaction that she could have with pretty much any guy. But a guy who can actually flirt with her and create sexual tension, now that is something else entirely, right? It's unique. It creates sparks of attraction inside of her. It wakes her up. It creates that sexual tension and desire, and there's something else that's going on. She's sensing something else, and it makes her feel turned on. It makes her feel attracted, and it doesn't make sense to most men out there. They'll see a guy who may be, for example, overweight or balding or have a big nose or have an average or even below average looking face interacting with a pretty woman, and she's feeling attracted to him. She's touching him. She's giggling and feeling giddy when she's interacting with him. And the guy looking on or the guys looking on are going, what the heck's going on there? Why does she like him? And they just don't get it. Right, but most of them will sense that something isn't the same about a woman's attraction to men, compared to our attraction to women. They'll sense that. They'll have that feeling, that niggling thought in their mind that something is different, but they won't be able to put their finger on it. And hopefully after watching this video, it will make more sense to you now that for women, it's mostly about what they sense rather than what they see.